Good afternoon. I am Rian Coetzee speaking to you from Pretoria in South Africa, Fortis Proactive Defence Solutions. Today I am having a little talk again with Reint Duykema. He is one of the instructors on the loan operator course, very involved with that and has been for quite a few years, and also happens to live on a farm. So today we will be talking about security on farms. Reint, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Rian, good afternoon. Yeah, so we talk again.
Right, I'm going to kick off by asking you, what would you consider to be the biggest security threats faced by farmers, and why are farms considered such high-risk targets?
Rian, it's a long answer, but to keep it short, most farms are in a rural setting, so it's quite isolated. I think a lot of criminals tend to think that it's a softer target. You know, I don't have a luxury of a neighbor 20 or 30 meters from me. On my left and on my right, my nearest neighbor is, 2 kilometers from me. And it's vast areas of land, Rian. It's quite a challenge to secure a farm. And this farm is about 2,000 hectares. So it's a lot of land to cover. So it's the nearest hospital from me is about 40 minutes, and that's if everything goes well on the road. And that's not even that far. There's people that's way worse off than that. It takes them hours to get to help or medical attention if they needed to. Yeah, that's the sweet and the short about it. Farmers are isolated, and it's once they get in, they have the whole night to deal with you without your neighbor knowing about it.
Yeah, and of course you've got generally farmers have got firearms, and potentially,
yeah, it's they
actually even cash.
It's that's correct. If you a lot of farms sell product for cash. That's a big thing that your risk just goes up if you are dealing in such a way. And the perception is that there's always firearms on a farm.
Yes. Well, it's. I mean, I think it's generally the case. So most of the time, it happens to be true. What physical security measures would you suggest can be implemented that can strengthen your defenses and reduce the risks of attacks, or at least increase your odds of survival?
I think the first thing is to be preventative. So the attack mustn't happen in the first place. And I think Dion had a good video about layers of security. In other words, you must make it difficult for these guys. Once they overcome one obstacle, they must meet another obstacle, and they must meet another obstacle to get to you. Things like a fence or concrete palisades. I always say, fences and palisades are just there to keep my dogs inside. Because if someone wants to go through or over, they're going to go through or over. But at least it's something that they need to overcome. So first they need, say, for instance, they need to overcome your dogs. That's the first problem, if you have dogs. and now they've taken care of the dogs, and now they must get through the fence, and now there's lightning outside your house. Security gates. I'm not talking about the security gate that Kosi welded in the workshop with a few droppers. I'm talking about a security gate. I know there's a financial burden to this. A lot of people can't afford decent security gates or burglar bars in front of windows. But that's where people get in. Yeah, so
I've noticed a lot of these security doors that you buy at a shop, instead of having it specifically made, purpose made, are more there to look nice and try and impress you than anything else, because the odds of stopping somebody from getting in and getting in very quickly. I mean, these guys are so good at entering. So it's probably best to spend a little bit more money and have a very serious security door made for you, which they will definitely, with the relevant locks and making it difficult to pry open. I think one needs to also time to think these things and consider what you can do to make it more difficult, even the basic stuff.
Yeah, Rian, I think people need to invest in their security. It's at the end of the day, it's going to be about buying time. If you can buy yourself a little bit time of all the security measures you put in place, it's going to give you a chance to react on an attack or to respond to a potential attack. If you look at some of these cases, when you see it on television or you read about it in the newspaper, and they show you where these people made entry, a lot of the times there's nothing in front of the windows. There's nothing in front of the doors. Then you wonder, why? Yeah. And the majority of these attacks are, we can look at the statistics, but it's sometimes older people of 60 years and older. It makes them soft targets.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to be 60 next year, so I guess that would make me one of the older people too. Right? Things like alarm systems, surveillance cameras, communication networks, in your area, even things like drones. Do you think these are generally more expensive items, especially if you have to put them on a farm, because you're probably going to need more than you would at your home in town to cover all the areas that you needed covering. But do you think these are things that can play a positive role in improving farm security?
Yeah, for sure, Rian. I mean, cell phone signals are not, you can't rely on cell phones anymore these days, especially in a rural setting. Radios are crucial for communicating within the farm and to the outside of the farm. For instance, to family members that lives on farm, managers and workers that lives on the farm. Alarms, I think, is a necessity. The last thing that you wanna happen is you wake up with 5 people standing around your bed. You're done. There's no fighting back in that situation. So alarm system is crucial. If you go to bed at night, you activate the alarm, and if someone gets in, the alarm will go off, and then you'll be able to respond. what we use a lot on the farm, especially on the outside, I'm now talking on the outside of the farm, to prevent theft and just plain vandalism of equipment and infrastructure, it's almost a trail camera with a SIM card and a motion sensor. So once it sees motion, it takes a 3-second video clip and it gets sent to a room in Pretoria where someone looks at it, and if he sees any human movement, because a lot of times it's wild animals, it's a hippo or a warthog or a bush pig or a bushbuck. So if there's any criminal activity, you get a call. And then what usually happens is we send up a drone first before we rush to the place. That's a very effective way to go and see and look firsthand what is going on and how many people are involved. And we make our plans then accordingly to that. So yeah, it's alarms, radios on farms, drones can be a big help. So we don't fly around with the drone constantly looking for people, because it's not that easy. Just randomly flying around. So if we know there's a problem, we send the drone to the problem. And that drone can be flown from anywhere. I can fly it. If I give you permission, you would be able to fly it. I don't need to go outside my house to fly the drone. I can do it from in the perimeter of my own house. It happens of the times, your the dog starts barking at night and they don't stop. I don't go outside if I'm not sure it's safe. And the first thing I do, I check it out with the drone, because you live on a farm and there's wild animals, then they're barking for whatever outside the fence.
Yeah, I think that's something that I personally have mentioned to more than one person. That thing of just charging outside to go and see what the situation is. You just don't know what you walking into outside in the dark. Even in the daylight, you don't really know what you're walking into.
Yeah, I mean, this is part of their modus operandi. I mean, they want, if your house is difficult to penetrate, they want you outside. And one way to do that is to make the dogs bark, or to make the alarm in your car go off, to lure you out, and now you're ambushed, and they get into your house that way.
Yeah, because they then use you to get whoever's in the house to open up.
Exactly.
So on that point, Rein, because that starts to go towards having plans of action in place for a potential fight, potential evasion, potential escape, that sort of thing. How can firearm ownership and proper self-defense training impact personal and family security on farms?
Firearms are equalizer, Jan. You don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Unfortunately, I move around in the farming community. And to be honest with you, I know 0 farmers that's doing training regarding self-defense. 0.
That's problematic.
I'm not saying it's all of them. where I move around, that's for sure the case. I'm sure there's farmers around the country that equip themselves and do a bit of training.
Yes.
More important even are the wives in the house, the women in the house. I know zero wives of farmers that underwent training, and I'm even talking about my own wife. Yeah, it's a pity, but that is the reality from my point of view. And the thing about you need at least training widens a bit your vision. And when I'm talking about vision, is your mindset towards things like this. I constantly, not constantly, but I make scenarios for myself. What's going to happen, if an attack comes from this side of the house and from that side of the house, and that's how you formulate the plan. If you haven't thought about it a bit, you're gonna freeze, and they're gonna overwhelm you.
So, if I understand you correct, what you're saying is, and I would agree with that statement, by the way, if more farmers, because obviously there are, in the country as a whole, there are a lot of who get. I'm not always certain about the regularity of that training, and also, keeping in mind it's a farm, so you've got different seasons, planting season, etc., harvesting, where farmers are potentially busier than other times of the year, so they can't necessarily always fit it in. And farming isn't a week job; it's a 7 day a week job. But if more farmers and their wives undergo proper training on a more regular basis, do you think that it is something that can I don't know if it can turn the tide, but if it can at least drastically start enhancing people's chances of survival?
For sure. I mean, it's what mostly happens once these guys get into your house. They walk past the women. They go straight for you because they know you are the biggest threat for them. So for a wife or for a woman, let's call it the woman in the house to be trained and armed. I mean, she can end it almost right there because they won't expect it from her.
Yes.
So I think it's crucial that women are armed on farms and they get the relevant training on a regular basis. Yeah.
And also, Brian, the farmer is out there the whole day, or there's a problem, or there's the veld is burning and they have to be out there trying to sort the flames out. Then more often than not, it's the wife and the kids, who remain at home while the guy's out there. So if they are armed and part of your whole training regimen, and they play that sort of active role in your emergency planning, then I certainly think it's something that can only be a plus.
Yeah, I mean, we need to remember, Rian, you're not going to face one or two attacks. They're going to be 4, 5, 6, and more. So it's already a mammoth job, if you just think about, let's talk about military ratios, it's what does it take for a force to attack a point? I think it's in general terms, it's 3-1, 3 attackers to 1 defender. So you're not going to face a one-on-one situation. You're going to face multiple guys on one time. And for the wife to get involved in the security of the house, especially when they are alone, it's a crucial point, yeah.
How can farmers create emergency sort of alarms of plans and escape routes, establish safe zones or safe rooms, that sort of thing? Do you consider that to be important? And how would you suggest? I mean, it's a rather, obviously differs from farm to farm, but would you suggest there to be certain guidelines that can be applicable to pretty much everybody just to get this established?
Rian, to be honest with you, first of all, a safe zone. Okay, it needs to be safe in the first place, and it needs to be secure. So if we talk about a safe zone, is it a zone outside your home where you drive to, where it's safe? And it must be secured by someone. In that case, who's going to secure it? Now you're starting to divide assets to secure a safe zone where you could have used those assets more effectively on the attack itself. In my house, I've got a safe room, and my family knows that's where they're going to go, and they're going to lock themselves up. And I've got, you need to funnel these people into a place where it's more advantageous to use. The advantage must be on your side, not on their side. Things like hallways are a good example. I mean, one guy can hold the army off in the hallway. So that's good points.
If you've got enough. Yes.
Yeah. So we call it a strong point, a point of domination in your house, where you can stand on one spot and fight multiple attackers on one time. Safe zones. When do you go to the safe zone? Now we're talking about a safe zone outside of your house. Now you need to leave your house, get into your car. Is the attack over now, or is the attack still ongoing? It's a difficult one. My safe zone, I would consider my house as the safe zone, and this is where I'm gonna bunker in and fight the fight.
Yes, that makes sense. That makes sense. Right? Okay, I'm gonna stop there. Thank you for your time and your inputs. I appreciate that. I think this is a topic that can go so wide. I'm just trying to stick to the basics for now, or what I consider to be the basics. Let's talk again soon. And the next time we can, what I would like to discuss with you, also security on farms, is things like vetting your workers, to try and minimize your potential threats on the internal threats, so to speak. So I shall speak to you again soon. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We talk again soon.